Different this evening, folks. We're going to do something different. I have a Dr. Purvis Williams with me, and he is an international expert on certain things, and we will talk about something that's going to ease your mind to the point where you will be thinking about something new. We're going to put emphasis on international affairs. We want to talk about wars and rumors of wars and how it's going to be impacting you on the local and the state level. Some of you think just because the war currently is in the Middle East and because it's in some of the so-called Middle Eastern countries, that is not going to impact you and the local politicians that's on the city council, that's on the supervisors boards and so forth, and the governors in the respective states. We're going to talk about that, and then we will be giving you some information on the local and state issues, where we will give you some very specific information about some of the candidates that are alleging to be the masters of goodness when they win in a few weeks in the county level, judges and people that are going to be on the city council. I have talked to most of them, interviewed at least 90% of them, and all of them are saying the same thing, basically, that I'm going to be a change agent and do the following. I've heard this for 50 years, and I haven't heard anybody say something they were going to do and then had a significant change that you could see and feel that was responsible and showed acts of positive leadership in 50 years in this state. Now, you don't want to hear that, but I'm going to tell you, you can rebuke what you hear if you want to by calling us later on. We will ask you to come on with information at 601-948-5950 later on and talk to Dr. Williams and yours truly about some of the things we say by asking a question. So, Dr. Williams?
Yes, sir.
I'm pleased to have you here again. I understand that you have been doing podcasts, radio and television shows for a long time, and you are not new to this area, but you've been on podcasts nationally and internationally, and not a lot of local radio and TV, but that's going to change.
Yes, sir. How are you doing today, Doc?
Well, I'm doing great, man. I tell you, I had a chance to talk to a medical doctor today about some issues. We did what we call telehealth, and I'm telling you, folks, things are changing in the world.
So you didn't go in?
Didn't go in. We just talked on the telephone. I was looking at the doctor, and the doctor was looking at me, and we were talking about prevention.
Okay.
We were talking about what we need to do and should have done years ago.
Okay, because I was going to ask you now, you on the video conference with him. That's a little different. Are you honest with him, or are you trying to keep from having to go in?
Well, I don't do nothing but tell the facts about my problems or good things that's happening when I go to a doctor. There's no need of lying.
You didn't leave nothing out, did you?
No, I didn't leave anything out. They have all the charts. They have all the tests. So why would I say something? And they are smart enough to know how to read, and they can analyze those figures and numbers and all that kind of stuff and know whether I'm telling the truth or not.
Well, you got to the point where you honest about it. A lot of people are trying to keep from going to the doctor, so they may leave some stuff out.
Well, some do, and that's why they end up with cancer. That's why they end up with serious mental health problems. That's why they end up without insurance, because they say, I don't need any, I'm not going to the doctor. Therefore, that's why they end up dead. And
that is true.
And in many cases, dead and can't even bury themselves because
true.
Instead of trying to spend the money getting health-related activities going for them, insurance and so forth, they are wasting their money on lottery tickets, buying alcohol and drugs, and doing all kinds of things of promoting what we call an early death. Now, there's nothing wrong with this if you don't love yourself, if you don't love your family, if you don't love your community, but we know it's not good. And that's why we want to look at the international scene today, Dr. Williams, and look at how it's impacting us in the great state of Mississippi, in the South, and in the nations of the United States. Now, let's get right to this thing. And I want you to give us your impression from a knowledge point of view and tell us what you think about the Israeli and the Palestinian need to negotiate to end this current war, or if they shouldn't negotiate at this time, what you think will cause them to negotiate later? Or is it better to do it now and not wait till later? You just address that any way you want so our listeners and viewers can see that this situation is something that must be addressed. You don't hear the governor talking about it in the respective states.
Right.
You don't hear the legislators talking about it. And of course, these local people that's in government positions, elected and appointed, are not saying anything about it. They're all putting their heads in the sand and saying, we are going to let the federal government and the international nations and conferences solve this problem.
Right.
And it's not going to happen. What is your opinion on this matter?
Honestly, Doc, the situation to me looks more like, how do you say, too far out of control to have it make any sense. Because if you have the people from the UN condemning what's going on, then who's the police for the UN? If the UN are saying you're committing a war crime, then who's going in to enforce that? That's what I always look at. It's a lot of talk about what they need to do, but look at what they're doing. Let's look at the situation. Let's not, that lip service, just like you were just explaining a minute ago. You hear a lot of politicians talk a lot of stuff before they get in office, and then none of them carry it out. What we're watching on TV is the movie they have for you. They know you're not going to do anything. All you're going to do is text and type in Facebook. So they're going to basically do what they want to do. And what they want to do is the government, our government, has funded all these military contractors to make all these bombs. They have to have that in the budget for next year, so they have to have a reason to use those bombs. That's what they're given to them to use over in Palestine and in the Ukraine and across the world. So if the United States government, if you're planning on them to do something, you're sadly mistaken. See, what I think should happen is the people of the world who are watching these crazy leaders of ours lead us in the wrong direction. It's time for us to say no more. It's time for us to say no more. We need to organize, don't criticize, but vote them out. It's time for us to say, as the majority of people who have sense, if our leaders aren't able to go to the table and talk and prevent wars, then we don't need them as leaders.
Well, Dr. Williams, suppose if you look at the history, every time we have had more than two males or two individuals in this world since creation, there have always been wars and rumors of wars. Now, you know they have been lying for years saying we're going to have this war and this is going to be the last one. We're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. And if you look at the cycle of wars in the world, every 13 years they have a major war somewhere with at least 5 to 10 or 15 different nations in one of the continents, and sometime on 3 and 4 continents at the same time, where they're displacing and killing thousands and thousands of people directly and millions indirectly by putting them in concentration camps, in refugee camps, and moving them around and trying to shift the burden and say we are looking out for the interests of the people. Now, address that.
Well, let me ask you this question then, Doc. If we see this happening like it's on a schedule, if we notice the schedule, and we know that most of our tax dollars are going to military funding and foreign aid, if we know all of these things, then common sense should tell us, and I'm not finna sit here and say I've had this common sense for a long time. I'm like most people. I was busy doing my thing, minding my business, and when you minding your business, the world is minding you. I think I'm saying that wrong because my therapist will say, when you doing you, when you doing your business, the world is doing you. And so I'm not paying attention. I'm just voting based on who sounds good to me, and I'm not really paying attention to what's happening. And we as the people voted for this. So we voted for these people. You said it's on the schedule. It happens every 13 years, that same cycle. We keep voting the same people in as if they're going to do something different. We're insane, not them. It's like me asking you to do something for me, and every time you do it, you mess it up. Either I'm gonna keep paying you to do the same messed up job, or I'm gonna realize I need to get somebody else.
Well, let me tell you, I wouldn't want you to do that. I would want you to give me another chance because you just gave me a 4-year contract.
Oh.
And I would say, Dr. Williams, you have given me a 4-year contract to be a consultant for you. Now, you're not pleased.
Right.
But I tell you, since you are saying you want to get away from me, you give me another 4 years, and I guarantee you I'll do the following. And I put it in writing, sign it and date it, get it notarized, and matter of fact, let a lawyer look at it. And you will probably give me my next 4 years because I done told you I'm going to solve the problem, and you're not going to have it again.
And it sounded good because the last thing we want to do is change. We don't like change. We know we need it, but it scares us to do something different. But everything that is associated with progress has something to do with change. And the reason why we're seeing our city go backwards as far as infrastructure, the reason why we're seeing this country going down from first in the world to now we're last in education and healthcare, that shouldn't be the case unless the leadership is failing. If we have dirty water, bad food, bad air, how is the leadership good?
Well, let's find out. We have a caller here. Maybe they will address this for us, or they might have a specific question. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, good evening, Dr. Henderson. I'm enjoying your program.
Thank you.
And your guest.
Thank you.
Your guest is spot on, and definitely he aligns with things that I'm learning too. I'm new to a lot of the things that he's talking about, but what I have come to discover is if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've always got.
Right.
Our people are not comfortable with change in a lot of scenarios. We have to get away from that.
Okay, thank you.
Change is necessary in order to get the result that you are looking for. If it hasn't been working, we have to put our hands together, like the man said, and come up with solutions that are going to work in our favor. Politics is supposed to work for the constituent of the politicians.
Okay, caller, thank you. Thank you, caller.
She got some more sense.
You have some more to say to us quickly?
Well, pretty much. I'm enjoying the program, and keep listening.
Keep on listening. Thank you very much.
And thanks for the call.
Most certainly. Dr. Williams, now, some people are saying, you know, we read a lot and hear what the so-called experts, world experts, say. We hear people that represent the United Nations and others. And as you said, the United Nations should resolve itself. They don't pool their resources and fight against their own enemies. They fund them directly through their surrogates and both sides. And you did mention the problem, say they are building new weapon systems all the time. They're selling them all over the world to all the people that's fighting. And that is a problem to some and a blessing to others. Address that, and then I want you to know, tell us whether or not the Middle Eastern factors should consider a ceasefire, or they should continue to fight until they wipe out each other to the point where they can't fight anymore, and address those topics there. And let's see what your opinion is through factual, historical information.
Well, just looking at what's happening, Doc. First, we have a war that's taking place, Israel, and they're in Gaza. So now we're seeing them having missile exchanges with Iran. And today, Lebanon. This to me doesn't sound like we're going towards a peaceful resolution. It looks like Israel is overarmed for the region.
Where did you get the arms from?
You know where they got them from. They got them from us. So we're destined, and this is another thing I can't stand, is people say, we're going to protect Israel regardless. What if Israel is in violation of human rights, got human rights violations? The UN resolution has condemned them. They came and lied to Congress so that they wouldn't have a problem getting more weapons. And now our politicians here heard those lies, still sent the weapons, and we're supposed to believe they didn't know that they were doing that. See, I'm not that stupid to think that our government didn't know what was happening before it happened. If you can get a satellite to read my car tag, you trying to tell me you don't know what's going on in the Middle East and why you're sending over billions of dollars of weapons? I think they're helping start something.
Well, let me tell you something, what some will say, and a good politician will always say, and if they want to continue to be in office, getting those 4, 6, and lifetime appointments, they're supposed to say, well, it's too close right now to the next election, and we are going to turn our heads around and continue what we are doing, and after election, we then will make an effort to cause a ceasefire. Now, I guarantee you, the current president of the United States and his opponent are not going to ask anybody in a serious manner to have a ceasefire before the end of this year. If they would do that, either party would lose about 10 or 15% of the vote, and then
I don't think so.
And then the other one would win.
I think I don't agree with that. I think
Why
that
not? Go ahead.
Because I think that we're letting them control the narrative. They have us told. They keep telling us the U.S. support Israel. I haven't met the U.S. that supports Israel, other than the people on TV telling me. See, the people out here in the communities who can't afford to pay their bills and the streets are tore up, they not supporting Israel. They trying to take care of themselves and their families. They support the city of Jackson. They support the state of Mississippi. They support the United States. These people are not trying to support Israel. So our government, all these politicians we put in there, if they say we support Israel, you need to fire them.
Well, tell me this, are they supporting the Palestinians then?
I support peace. That's what I support.
What peace?
Peace, period. If we can't, if you and I are sitting here right now, we having a conversation and it gets out of hand, I'm not finna jump up and punch you. Now, if you throw in alcohol, which I think most of our leaders are overindulging in, like the Bible says, you're not supposed to be drinking if you are ruling over people. You'll neglect them and you'll treat them bad. It's Proverb 31. Go read that. It ain't about the women, it's about the men and our role in leadership. You're not supposed to be consuming alcohol. You're going to neglect the people and you're going to be all out of control. That's what it says. I'm paraphrasing. That's what our leadership is doing. They're neglecting the poor and they're funding wars. And what are we doing? We cheering them on by voting them back in, because most of us probably shouldn't be consuming alcohol either.
Well, let me tell you something. As you know, when you have big financial contributors and they invite you to these private parties and you pay $400 or $500 for a plate of fried chicken and a vegetable or two with some tea, you have to have the VIP meeting first, where you have your big contributors come in and give you $10,000 to $150,000, and the first thing they're going to do is get you some alcohol so you can get your mind messed up, and then you go to the dinner with the people that can only pay $10,000, and you have those people locked in, and I guarantee you there are not going to be any what I call sensibilities there, where people are going to look at the future. We're only concerned about the present.
Okay, so how about this then? Stipulations, and our government doesn't seem to have any, whether it be at the judge level, Supreme Court accepting gifts and acting like they above the law, or our current politicians. If a person at Nissan decided, I'm going to go on break and have a meeting with my line personnel, and while we're on break, we're going to smoke some joints. Now, when we come back in the building smelling like weed, we probably get fired.
Probably
now,
will.
Because when I got the job, they told me it's no cannabis, no smoking, no drugs, and they drug tested me. Why aren't we drug testing our politicians? Why do we believe that they making these decisions that somehow poison our food, poison our water, poison the air, and they somehow are sober?
Let me answer that for you. Because you don't have to.
We don't have to
give them a test, because they determine whether they get tested or not.
And
they are not foolish enough to vote a test and say we're going to have specific qualifications to be the President of the United States, the governor, members in the legislature, other than age, and they have to live in the area that they are voting.
But you can get drunk and high all you want.
Of course you can. That is not against the law for politicians. They have no educational requirement. They have no leadership requirement. They have one requirement. That is to be of a certain age and have enough sense to pretend you live in a certain area. You don't have to do that. You just put it on a piece of paper that you do. And then the last thing, you have to be able to get enough funds to gain 51% of the vote against your opponent. Those are all the requirements.
So once again, Doc, I'm not finna sit here and argue with them because evil is doing what evil does. They doing evil stuff. That's what evil would do. Now we the fools for allowing it to happen. Since we know it, it's not like we don't know these things. We know they going up in there and they having drinks while they making policies. We know they in there rubbing hands and stuff with their biggest donors. We know this. So why are we going in there 4 years later and voting them right back in? Right back. Hey, right. Let's vote them back in. Guess what? We must like suffering, or do we like complaining about the suffering? Because it doesn't take but one vote different to see change.
Well, let me tell you something which is realistic. Man loves suffering. We are what we call suffering servants. All over the world, we'll rather suffer than to get in a position where we don't suffer by looking at our special interests, preparing ourselves to be proactive, and then training people that you're going to put in positions of responsibility and getting rid of the people that are elected and appointed, that you elect and appoint and pay, and let them stay in office, whether it's appointed as a minister or as a corporate executive that we allow to stay in office when they kill you and have no liability, which I talk about from time to time. And your son, and I like to use this analogy, can go and just put a small, I would say, punishment on someone and he might get 30 years. And here you are, Dr. Williams. You're the executive of the Williams Mechanical Electronic Technology Company, and you are selling machines that are killing people with all the fumes and other chemicals that you have.
I ain't going to jail.
You are not going to jail because you have enough money to pay lobbyists, and my listeners have heard me say it many times, to go and get legislation passed on the state level and on the national level, and you have no liability because you have paid off the politicians, you have paid off the preachers, and the corporate leaders go and use those sources and have the preachers to testify that they need to be forgiven, for instance.
So who the fool then, Doc? If you can spit out all that stuff that you know that they doing, that you know they've been doing for 50 years, and it's not like I didn't hear it before. It's not like these children out here haven't heard it. But when we go into that voting booth, that name that I know, check. That name I know, check. That name I know for the past 40 years is going to do something different. That name I know for the past 30 is going to do something different, other than to say that the other side did it. Well, let me give you some numbers, Doc.
Give me some numbers.
Give you some numbers. All right, so if we go back to Jimmy Carter, because most people can't remember nothing past that, no way. Okay. Jimmy Carter, 4 years. Ronald Reagan, 8 years. Bush, 4 years. Clinton, 8 years. 8 years. Trump, 4. Joe, 4.
Don't forget about Obama.
Oh yeah, forgot Obama. 8 years with Obama. Sorry about that, President Obama. Now, if we divide that, it's 24 years Democrat, 24 years Republican. It's like we playing tennis. We're going to hit it to your side. Then they're going to complain about you because we just did something. Now we're going to hit it back to your side, and you act like you ain't going to do it again. But you really is finna do it. And then we hit it back over here. So we've been doing this back and forth for 24 years apiece, 48 years total. I'm 51, by the way. 51 years old. And this country has slid down into a place where I don't even recognize the American dream as being possible for these children that are coming up, because it ain't even possible for me right now. The court system has been set up to destroy the family. It has just been eliminating anything that we had that was holding us together. The justice system that we know of, the politicians that we know they flooded communities with drugs. What we don't know is they flooded all the communities with drugs. We just like to talk about us, but now they flooded all of them. You can't have one crippled leg and expect somebody not to hop around. No, you got to break them both. So they had the poor whites and the poor blacks struggling. See, we only see what's on TV, Doc. We seeing the war on drugs is us. Well, guess what? There was a war on drugs in the white community. There was a war on drugs in the Asian community. There's a war on drugs in the Hispanic community too. When you talk to those people and you hear those stories about how crack did they families, we have to recognize that they're against the poor people. They're against the unorganized. What you keep saying, organized. We have to get organized against, and actually, it don't take but a couple, it can take a month from that, a month and a half from that. Just organize enough to say, I'm not voting anybody back in.
Wait a minute, sir. Now, don't you
Nobody.
don't talk that way, man.
Nobody.
You're going to get yourself in trouble.
No, I ain't going to get in no
some
trouble.
Of these good people that's been running things.
Name a good one.
I'm not going to take that responsibility. I don't know
That's
any,
what I thought.
but I'm going to tell you right now, you are getting ready to cause a rebellion around here. And let me tell you why the rebellion is not going to take place.
Well, it can take place.
No, it can't.
Yes,
because
it can.
in order to get people out of office, you have to vote them out, or they have to get old and sick and die out, because you don't have enough voters to vote people out of office. And let me tell you why. Because 75% of most Mississippians that are registered to vote don't vote.
Right.
And then you got another larger group that's not even registered that's old enough to vote. So you have the same, and I've looked at the statistics on this, from 17 to 33% of the people vote the same people in every time.
That's true.
So that means roughly we're averaging out about 75% of the people don't even vote.
But like I just said, Doc, I used to be one of those people who wasn't paying attention, who was just voting for somebody who sounded good or who looked like me or sounded like me or knew my mama. That's how I used to vote too.
Wait a minute now.
I had to wake up, Doc.
Now here you are, you almost trying to indirectly tell people that they ought to vote for a person because of who she is and because of the color of that person, or because of the party they represent. Are you saying that?
I said that I've made those mistakes in the past. I don't know what other people are choosing to base their voting stance on. I'm telling you my stupidity. My stupidity was, well, mama voting like this? Well, I'm going to vote like this. Mama voting like, I'm going to vote like this. This is how my family is doing. I'm a part of the conversation and I feel good. Being a part of the conversation felt good. Now what I'm noticing is, now that I'm standing in the middle and I'm looking at both sides like they crazy and choosing to be independent, now I'm not fitting in and everybody looking at me crazy.
Well, now look here. See, you want to go against family tradition now,
right,
and folklore.
I'm
now,
going against everything.
Here you are, Dr. Williams. You're trying to get to the point where you're going to make people start rebelling against what we call the status quo. Now, let me tell you something. If your parents been voting Democrat all their lives,
right,
and you were reared up in a certain part of not Mississippi but another place, we don't talk about where you come from because that's worse than Mississippi. But the bad news is you want to cause people to rebel against family tradition, and at the same time you don't want to admit that you have done that yourself, especially when it comes to religion. I bet you were a good Baptist or whatever your parents were, holiness, whatever. Those first Catholics, that's one religion that you have to be very careful to mention because of the political structure that the Catholics deal with.
I don't care, Doc. You know that I am against all of them. I'm in the middle of this thing and ain't no careful with nobody. Look, as I've explained to my mother, as many times as I've heard of sexual allegations and problems in the Catholic Church, for you to still be donating money to them makes me question your sanity.
Yeah, what about the Mormons? What about the Protestants?
I said,
Methodists?
All of them I have a situation with because I'm looking at our communities. I see the churches seem to be getting bigger and bigger. The cars are getting nicer and nicer. The jets are even showing up now at the preacher's house.
Wait
so
a minute.
what I'm looking at is we the fools because we giving them the money. Now, I don't have a grocery store around here anywhere, do I, Doc?
No.
I don't have one in Ward 2. I got a half of one in Ward 3. Last time I went in there, the food was sour. The only ones I can think about is I got a Walmart over here, Supercenter. I got a Kroger on 55 and another Walmart. And I ain't gonna even discuss the medical mall, like I said. That's the skeptical food. So now this is what we dealing with. But the churches out here got paid. The churches got plenty of money. They got enough money to buy a school over here. The church got enough money to own all these lakeridges and these houses. But what are y'all doing to actually make the community better?
Let me tell you. Now, here you getting ready to blaspheme.
Blaspheme.
Now, you know I talk positive about preachers.
I didn't say no names.
You know I talk positive about preachers.
I didn't.
You don't ever hear me saying anything bad about preachers.
Hey,
but I
put it like this, Doc. Put it like this,
sounds
Doc.
bad.
What if? And I'm gonna give them some slack.
Okay, give them.
What if they don't know any better?
What you mean they don't know any better?
Because see, everybody had a teacher. And everybody had a mentor of some sort. And a lot of people were raised wrong. A lot of people were taught wrong. And some preachers have been trained wrong. Because I'm listening to the words coming out of their mouth and they go into certain scriptures, but they're not using any discernment. None at all.
Well, now, here you are, you criticize the preachers.
I didn't criticize. I said using discernment, which is required to use if you're going to be a leader of the church. And I'm just saying they're not using it.
Now, let me tell you, you are saying...
Is that criticizing or stating the fact?
Well, you are factual, but the thing is, you are sounding that you are a Bible teaching preacher, and you are making me think you are another Geno Jennings.
No, man. See, what it is I'm one of those people who actually believe that Jesus would condemn these things because that's what he did in his ministry. He didn't do the things that I'm seeing these people doing. He would have talked bad about preachers in a G8 and a Bentley when I got all these hungry, homeless people out here. So I'm not taking that that rhetoric that they throw at us when the preachers say I'm worth extra $1 billion. Come on, man.
Come on. Now, here you are, you're getting Jesus involved. Now, Jesus did the best he could, and he didn't do it long. You know, he wasn't around here doing anything positive, but for about 3 years. Now, when he turned 12, he was in the temple talking, and they treated him so badly until he was solid till he was about 30 years of age.
Because he realized who he dealing with, Doc. And I understand it. When you're trying to get people to open their eyes up and see the errors of their ways, see the errors of their leaders, people don't want to do that.
Okay, well, let's see what people are saying in the community. We have another caller. Go ahead, caller.
Dr. Henderson.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Reed.
Yes, sir. Thanks for
I'm
calling.
enjoying the show.
I thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
Yeah. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, Dr. Henderson. You said you're not talking about the church leadership, right?
Yeah, I always talk about positive leadership and negative leadership, and I just don't criticize individuals. What you talking about?
Okay, well, see, that's part of the problem. They need some criticism. Because Dr. Williams is letting you know, but them calling their names were part of the problem. If you can't sit with them, that's part of the problem, then that's a problem in itself.
Well, I believe
you're looked at as a leader in the community.
But I believe in positive criticism. Positive criticism by talking about what's actually happening. And that's why I have Mr. Williams here. Mr. Williams, Dr. Williams is one that's interested in going to heaven when he dies, but everyone is not interested in going to heaven. They practice living in heaven on earth. That is called Hendersonism.
And look, and I understand that, but if for those who want to experience heaven on earth, they also, you got to realize that they have been influenced by some of the people who are considered big leaders right here on earth. But you being a leader on earth, and if you can't positively criticize the ones who have the most influence on our people here on earth, then, like I said, that's another problem. But I'm enjoying the show. I'm going to keep listening. Y'all keep going to do a good time.
Right,
Thank you, sir. Yeah, that's a good comment, caller. I know exactly what I'm doing. I guarantee you. I know that's why I have Dr. Williams here. Dr. Williams.
Because you know I'm gonna criticize him. I'm trying
well,
to
you better
not
criticize.
I'm trying to not how do you say, be my old self and so harsh and be a little understanding. However, my sarcasm is gonna stick out.
Now, it is sticking out. And you are saying that people are not speaking out.
No.
We were talking about international wars a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been looking in the local papers, the national papers, and international journals and television, radio, and podcasts and others. But I don't see a lot of preachers that's opposing a lot of these wars that's going on, other than a few, and they are taking one side.
Well, come on now, Doc. It's just like the politicians out here. They big donors don't want you in there. See, you thinking that the preacher getting $5 from me, $100 from Mom and them, $50 from AT, and $100 over here. No, see, the preacher has a NBA player on his in his roster on the thing. He got a movie star on there now. He got a couple of rappers over there. So when that NBA contract come in for $300 million, oh, he looking for his 10%. And see, if that NBA player says, I don't get involved in politics, then your preacher don't get involved in politics. See, the preacher is just as bought as your news people and your politicians. They not standing up for us and fighting for us
now
anymore.
You're getting on the news people. You're criticizing everybody, Dr. Williams.
Doc, seriously, how many shows are like this where you can come in and actually say what's on your mind and it's not going to be policed?
Well, this one is. But now when you talk about the news people, those people work for corporations, and those corporations are being funded by the same people that fund the politicians.
Well,
you think that man that's an anchor, or that woman that is an anchor that's been working for years at a certain station, will get up and say something that's independent of what he's been told by his producers?
I
That man and woman are not crazy.
Script. I expect them to read that script. But do you remember when we used to have investigative reporters? When they used to let reporters go find the truth. That's what they used to do. But the Democrats and Republicans, I have to give it to them, they very smart. They bought up all the media, or let me say, they friends bought up all the media outlets, so they consolidated everything just like they did the food companies. They only have name brands now, hot this, hot that. But they all the same company. Just like your Kellogg's and is pumping out these different foods, you think there's different brands and choice. No. So I have to give it to them on that. They controlled information by controlling information. And what we doing is looking at this channel and thinking it's different than this channel. The same owners, the same information, misleading, misguiding. But since we all know this, it's time for us to wake up and do something different. Realize that I'm listening to a Democrat channel. I'm listening to a Republican channel. That's why they're not talking about the independents.
I thought they were supposed to be non-biased. I thought they were supposed to talk about the facts.
When was the last time you actually heard somebody say non-biased on the news?
Well, I haven't heard it, but I'm saying I thought that's the way it's supposed to be.
It was supposed to be a lot of things, Doc. We were supposed to have our children doing better than we are. We were supposed to have more jobs available and cleaner water, not dirtier water. We were supposed to have nicer infrastructure, not worse infrastructure. Our kids were supposed to be prospering and doing way better in this world. That's what was supposed to happen, but we kept voting for the same old thing, same old thing, same old thing. And we kept getting the same old thing, and none of us, we slowly are waking up to realize these people don't work for us. None of them. They work for whoever got the most money to keep them from working for us.
Dr. Reeves, here you go again. Now you're whipping on the children. You were saying your children are not as smart as the parents. You're saying they have less economic clout than the parents. They have more education, less economic clout.
Wow.
They can't budget.
Well,
they don't go to school and learn what they need to learn to be competitive.
Well,
they won't leave home, and they have all kinds of skills that are negative, and they will not become independent. They won't vote. Mm-hmm. And you were saying they are not doing what they're supposed to do
I
because they've been misled by parents,
I'll ask
by
you
the
this.
preachers, by the corporate leaders? Now explain that thing,
you gotta
because
call.
these young people are smart. I see them every day.
They did not start No Child Left Behind because we were getting better.
Why did they start it then?
Because they saw that the crack years had affected our children so much that they were not able to perform at the levels they used to perform.
Wait a
You gotta
minute,
call.
Dr. Williams. I have a call, but we got to get this thing straight. Now, if they
Give 'em some facts.
no child left behind.
Yeah,
and
George
you're-
W. Bush pushed that.
And you are saying they say we're gonna dumb down education.
Yeah.
Because the middle class parents say my child is an AB student,
Mm-hmm.
so he's a CD student. Now you make the CD the A and B,
Oh,
and
no.
then let him go. That's what
I
you
ain't
were
saying
saying.
that. I'm saying it wasn't just the middle class. They saw this happening in the upper class. That's why it was created. See, y'all keep thinking that the crack years hit just the poor people. No. Don't y'all remember Hunter Biden smoking crack, taking a picture of himself? Who does that?
I heard about that.
Yeah. What kind of person takes a picture of himself smoking crack? That's a cry for help. The upper class was struggling with drugs. They call it freebase. They struggling with it too. They saw their kids being affected. They knew that their kids couldn't keep up. Why you think we got all these old politicians in here scared to turn it over? It's because they don't have anybody to turn it over to.
Well, let me tell you, Doc. Now you got to understand.
Who they gonna turn it over to?
These rich boys and girls don't have anything to worry about. They don't care what the law is. Their moms and dads control the appointments of the judges
Them
and all
kids
these
them
lawyers.
kids-
They not worried about prison.
They can't handle the business of business. That's the thing. See, when you're on drugs, and a lot of politicians are, and you have a baby, that baby's affected. I don't care how much money you get.
Well, I know that. Now here you are. You're talking now about abortion.
No, I ain't talking about abortion. I'm saying the things that have affected us in the poor community, we used to call them crack babies. Remember
Right,
that word?
right.
We act like that crack babies wasn't coke babies if it was in the upper class. A freebase baby. A sniffing coke baby. It was a PCP baby. See, them saying just because you see it around you don't mean it wasn't happening up there. So it justifies why we have all these old people right now in office trying to hold on to power because they don't have any kids who can come in and succeed them. See, you had a whole Kennedy lineup, remember?
But you're saying now the current politicians have mismanaged the legislation
Well,
throughout the last 50 years,
well,
and their kids now worse off than they are?
Well, let's talk about God.
Well, let's do it.
This is called nothing done goes unpunished. You know, nothing done wrong is gonna go unpunished.
Who gonna punish?
The law, God's law.
Okay, explain that to me.
It's just like gravity. You jump, you come down. Laws don't change. You may not know the law, but that don't mean it's not going to affect you. The things that you put out into this world will come back on you. That's why we have a president who wrote a crime bill or drug bill, and his son is smoking crack.
Well,
You feel me?
I
So
hear you.
it's not like he escaped anything. But you tell me, what is Biden's legacy now? Which one of his kids is going to pick up the reins and come and be the next Biden? None. Because the law don't play with you. You might think you got away, but you didn't. You just opened it up to come another generation away. That's why they always tell you the sins of the father will fall on the son. Joe's sins fell on Hunter. That's how that happened. And you can not believe it all you want, but look at it. So when we're looking at this country right now, we're not escaping God's judgment. We're in the middle of it. And if we don't, the good people who've been sitting back watching and hoping I can just get on through here until I get old and die, if we don't step up and start speaking against what we're seeing, the evil, then we're going to get punished just like everybody else.
well, you are giving the predictions of the world.
Now, this is what you should be able to see, Doc.
Well, I do see it.
Look at our children right now.
I'm looking at it.
I saw a video this morning of down in Macomb. Do you know they're not even letting you come to a football game in Macomb, Mississippi anymore?
They're afraid.
They're afraid of the kids. They're afraid of our children.
They're
So
afraid
now-
of their own children.
So if it's the children we're afraid of, then we are failing as parents. That is period. That ain't got nothing to do with them kids. That's us. And I don't care what nobody say, you are supposed to put the fear of yourself and God in that child from 0 to 7 so that they grow up and learn and respect you. A lot of people read the book, don't timeouts. Don't hit your kid, put your timeouts. But what they didn't do is 7 years later, they wrote another book and they said, timeouts ain't working.
Then what they do?
You need to get back to whooping. Nobody read that part. Nobody looked for that book. Because when we get something in our mind, we don't want to change it.
Well, let me tell you something else, Dr. Williams. You were saying that legislation, direct or indirect, really been the thing that causing these problems in the school. Now, you didn't even mention the other one that people talk about all the time. They took the so-called religion out of school.
They did.
Now, that has an impact, one way or the other, on the students. Which way that you would consider, positive or negative?
Well, it's a negative whenever you take God out of the situation. When I look at the religion in the school, the reason they took it out is because they took Christianity out of schools.
What Christianity? They never had practiced no Christianity in America.
Okay, they took the word Christianity out.
Now you're getting
the word.
Now,
okay,
right.
So what I'm looking at is we're in a country that has freedom of religion. What is your First Amendment? Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom. But did we really have freedom of religion? Do we? Or is it freedom of Christianity? Now, if a Muslim child was in the class and a Jewish child was in the class, are we going to give them an opportunity to pray? Are we going to say it out loud? Are we going to be quiet? Are we going to get the kids 15 minutes of prayer time?
Well, they ought to get about 3 minutes of silent prayer time. That ought to be after you check the roll. All the kids that want to should have a 30-second prayer time where they do it silently, and then the teacher should give out the assignment and start the presentation for the day.
I don't have a problem with religion in school at all. I do believe in freedom of religion. I don't believe in you telling me that this is the only way to get there, and you are the people who are right now causing our problems. I'm not listening to you. It's kind of like the worst advice is coming from people who claim to be the best. And yeah, now I'm throwing a rock in the water, because when I look at the numbers, Doc, when I look at divorces, the amount of people in jail, the amount of kids out here that are with single parents, all of those are coming from Christian families mostly.
Well, let me tell you, there's one thing for sure. I don't think you're going to have to worry about divorce too much longer.
No.
Because most people are not getting married.
And I understand.
And you don't have to worry about the parents getting better and raising and teaching their children, because most kids in certain communities have about 75% of the parents not married. Yes. And the poor woman trying to raise the kids, 3 to 5 or 6. But let's see what this expert is saying. We have a good caller. I want to thank you, caller, for calling us. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, I have a comment on something that was said earlier, just earlier about taking actual reference to prayer out of school.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
That should start in the home.
Yeah.
Well, I just
Christianity.
Go ahead.
Prayer,
Okay.
Didn't start in the school. It started in the home.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible tells parents to train up a child in the way they should go. You have to train. Well, I assigned that a teacher's job is to teach. Now, when I was coming through, they had prayer in school. They did the pledge of allegiance, they did prayer and that kind of thing. But and I don't have any problem with that. But nobody talk about the fact we always say took prayer out of the school. The problem is prayer is not in the home.
Amen.
Until you get it back in home, teaching at home, you're going to continue to have problems.
Well, sir, let me tell you. Thank you, caller. I will tell you, caller, I really appreciate that comment. But the thing is, well, you're going to continue to have problems in the school then, because the homes have almost disappeared. I just told you before you called that about 75% of the kids don't have parents.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
In the home. The mom or the grandmother raising the kids. And you know, most of the fathers now don't have to get married, because the woman says she can't find a qualified man, so she has to just select 2 or 3 and have 2 or 3 kids here and there, and hope that one day she can find an old widower And usually when that happens, he doesn't want to marry the young women because they have too many children. Now that doesn't sound too good, but I'm giving you the research that we have done.
But that goes back to what he said.
Yeah, it's exactly what he said.
We needed the God part, the church back in your house. Because those moral values are what our parents instilled in us. You know, seeing grandmama and granddaddy, mama and daddy, uncles and aunties work things out. We don't see that anymore.
And going to church as a group.
Going to church as a group,
Yeah,
right.
even if you have to stay all day, once a month.
And sometimes that happens. And I agree with the caller. We don't have that fundamental foundation, and it's showing.
And I agree with him also.
It's showing.
He's exactly on point. Caller, I want to thank you. For calling us. And
May I say one more thing?
yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, what you said was true. I agree. We don't have parents at home, and sometimes we don't have the kind of parents at home to teach their children. And thank God for the ones who are there, who are doing a good job. And there are some doing a good job. But overall, the problem is like you said.
Now,
Finally,
go ahead.
It is not the teacher's job to train your child a religion, prayer, or sex education.
Yeah.
Okay, caller. Now let me I want to thank you for calling. I want you to hang up. I want you to listen to this. Now the thing is,
Okay.
you're talking about parenting and things of that nature. I want to know, are your children doing, and I'm talking to all the people that's listening, a little better than you? Are you setting the example and being the role model in your family for your children? Do you have your grandchildren with you? Do you support that daughter that has 3 or 4 young kids, and she brings them home to you, and you got to help send them to school and let her work a job and a half to halfway support them? Or you take them to school every day, you're putting them in private schools to make them look good, and she can't even help you pay bills because she's spending her money on consumer items, and you think you had the best daughter because your son is not there. He comes in when he gets ready. Now, you are not guilty of that, of course, and if you are guilty of it, you were saying it's just going to be temporary. Don't answer that, but I'm just throwing this out to the listeners. We have some good, smart listeners out there, and many of them know that I'm talking exactly about them. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about upper class folks, middle class, and poor folks.
You is.
So I want to thank you. We are moving forward, folks. I'm telling you, we're moving forward. I think we have another person calling, Dr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, caller.
Hey, this is Attorney Bridget Morgan. I'm listening in to you and Dr. Williams, candidate for Hinds County Court Judge Subdistrict 2.
Yeah.
Dr. Williams talked about putting God back into the schools, but we also need to put God back into politics.
Come on.
Using discernment when we are deciding on these votes instead of, like he said, talking about mom said vote for this person, that person. We need to be using discernment to make sure that we are choosing the people of God to do the work of God.
Amen.
And also what you said, Dr. Henderson, about whether or not we were being examples for our children, I do want to say I've been running for office for the last few months. Now my son is running for office at his school, and so I just wanted to share that sometimes some single moms can get it right. And thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank you, attorney. But let me tell you, attorney, you are different. You are a helpmate for your child. I know your history. You work with your child, and you're with him, taking him here and there. You make sure he has good friends. You don't let him hang around those hoodlums. And even you work with his friends so you can keep your eye on all of them. Now, that's a good thing. Now, if you keep on acting that way and believe in Christianity, we'll know in a few days whether or not you're going to have an opportunity to get paid 4 years while you can do a lot of community service. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Like you were saying, though, Doc, it takes a village to raise a child. We lost that village. Our independent selves, our moving around. I'm guilty of it too, leaving town and going somewhere else. But what Mississippi has to start doing is creating a reason for us to stay here. You know,
how are they going to do that?
Well,
and who's going to do it?
Well, once again, we have to have leadership who is able to see into the future, see what's coming. Quit looking at what's right now and what's in front of me. We need to start planning for what's coming. And if we're not planning for this new AI revolution, Jackson it's gonna fall. Jackson itself is gonna fall behind because your current leadership probably, I'm not gonna say no names, do all of them use email? Do all of them have access to the information they need to be a leader right now in 2024? See, my talking in 2024 is only gonna get me so far. 2025. That fast technology move that we saw from from holding the phone with the cord to the cell phone to internet to now, AI is going to be 1,000 times faster than that. And they're already laying off people across the country, losing their jobs to AI.
Artificial intelligence.
Yes, sir.
Now you hear that word, artificial. What does that mean?
It means that it is not you doing the thinking. However, it means it's doing the thinking based on logic, not feelings. It's calculating things based on information that it has received and access to.
That man put in the computer.
And that it has a discernment ability. Believe that.
I believe that.
Where it can see the falseness compared to the truthness, because it can compare so many things at once. It'll eliminate the false and show you the truth. So our dishonest people out here, AI will call them out. Our half truths, AI will call them out. And that's one of the things I love about it, is it makes you honest. It makes you more aware of your ability to leave things out.
Well, sir, we don't have but 30 seconds, but I'm going to tell you the solution to this problem. You know, I believe in solutions.
I do too.
Well, we need an AI governor, an AI legislature, we need an AI mayor, and we need an AI supervisor.
I won't have a problem with
A
that.
big machine down at a big building, and just a regular citizen with expertise in that area. Go there and program that thing every week and do something that they don't do, put a strategic plan together for 5, 10, 15, and 30 years, and you don't have to have anybody elected to be your representative.
And they not arguing back and forth,
That's right.
trying to approve a garbage contract. I ain't gonna lie about it. That sounds like a good idea.
It is an excellent idea, but it won't happen because it hurt too many people financially. Okay, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for listening. I told you, this is the Real News Show, organized, don't criticize. And today I did something a little different, and I didn't take my position on things. I wanted to give Mr. Williams, Dr. Williams here, since he is from out of state,
I'm from here, man.
you from here, but hell, excuse me, you've been gone for many years, and you're back here learning all that good information. Now you want to brainwash us and let us think you're a saint. So, Mr. Henderson, we want to thank you very much for working with us.
We out of here.
And I'm telling you, we appreciate the listeners, and I want to thank you all for calling us at 601-948-5950, and come on in here. And we want to say thank you. Now, I want you all to get ready for our representative. Our representative is coming in.